Since my last video, the Pokemon trading card game metagame has already developed, and the rotation technically hasn't even happened yet. So I want to take a look at some of the decks that I think are going to be seen at the Atlanta Regional Championships this coming weekend. And hey, you know what? If you're not going, you might as well sleeve up one of these for some play testing or take it to one of your locals or even a League Cup event near you. Tried and true, Dragapult EX is still here to dominate the metagame. Packaged with the Dusk Noir line and of course the multiple copies of Bidoof with that itchy pollen attack, this deck is set up to establish a board state to where they can take multiple prize cards a single time. New inclusions in this deck like Jock help deal with opposing Bidoof with itchy pollen to help you establish your recon directive to be able to filter through your deck and find the pieces you need, and additionally being able to grab those Dusclops and Dusk Noirs. Dragapult has definitely shifted focus in these last few weeks to be able to play a little bit heavier on the supporter counts like Arven and Jock to be able to find the pieces you need to set up your board. Additionally, this deck has moved away from playing Sparkling Crystal and started playing Unfair Stamp as a way to bait your opponent into taking a KO, putting their hand down to 2, and then establishing a large board by removing threats with Phantom Dive and of course Curse Blast. I think this deck in the right hands is still an unstoppable force with the ability to take multiple prize cards in a single turn. Taking a look at Terabox, another deck that I think is still fantastic in the metagame, it is definitely adapted to include the Cornerstone Ogerpon EX to deal with the walls variants that are out there, as well as opposing Cornerstone Ogerpon EXs. A lot of the deeper intricacies of these decks now have devolved around Cornerstone Ogerpon EX being able to use Demolish, which goes through any effects on your opponent's Pokemon, including its own ability. This deck utilizes Crispin and Teal Mask Ogerpon as well as Energy Switch to accelerate energy to all these various attackers. As simple as going second on your first turn, there is a world where you can torrential pump your opponent, taking 2 prize cards on single prize Pokemon in certain matchups. This deck is an absolute threat in the current metagame until Shaman comes out in Destined Rivals. Next, I want to take a look at Gholdingo EX, and it's paired up this time around with the Dunsparce EX. That way we can go ahead and use the 2 different attacks on a Dunsparce to handle certain situations. Of course, the Destructive Drill attack for 3 colorless does 150 and goes through any effects on your opponent's other Pokemon is a way to deal with Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX. Additionally, being able to play the Runaway Draw to Dunsparce allows you to draw 3 cards and then shuffle it back into your deck. And you can combine that with Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking to find whatever pieces you need off the top of your deck. This allows for a lot of different synergy, and you're almost always going to have a very, very large hand size. However, this deck's biggest enemy is still Bidoof. A late game, well-timed Itchy Pollen can cripple this deck into a unplayable pile. Keep that in mind though. With the power of Energy Search Pro being able to search for one of every single kind of energy to thin out the deck, as well as take massive one-hit KOs into any opposing threat in the format, I think this deck is a very, very fun and very well-poised weapon in the standard format. While we're on the topic of one-hit KOs, Raging Bolt EX is still a menace as well, with its Bellowing Thunder attack being able to discard as many energy as you'd like from play to do 70 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon for each one you discard, effectively discarding anywhere from 4 to 6 energy cards to knock out everything in the format. This is a powerhouse. Additionally, using the power of Teal Mask Ogerpon EX to accelerate energy onto your Pokemon and play and draw cards, this has so many ways of recursion. The main supporter here is, of course, Professor Sada's Vitality, allowing you to attach energy from the discard pile to 2 of your ancient Pokemon and drawing 3 cards. In terms of other ancient Pokemon, we are playing a single copy of Slitherling in here to handle things like Mimikyu and other various attackers. And additionally, Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon really does feel like the cornerstone of the format, as decks have to be able to either beat it or use it to beat itself in these matchups. So this deck now is including copies of Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX, as well as Crispin to accelerate energy onto it so you can demolish faster before your opponent can demolish you. Additionally, the power of Jewel Seeker with Noctowl once again pops its way into this deck list because of the Terra Pokemon of the Ogre Pawns. You're just able to find all the pieces you need and set up a board that is almost just invincible at times. Between this and Gholdingo EX, I really recommend these two decks to a lot of younger players. They are not as complex as, say, Terabox, Dragapult, or the next deck that we'll talk about, but I do think these have a very good place in the metagame going forward. The last deck I want to talk about is Terrapagos Noctowl. This is effectively a Terabox deck with Terrapagos being the primary attacker. With the combination of Bouffalant and Terrapagos having a Bravery Charm on it, your opponent effectively has to hit for 340 damage to knock out a full health Terrapagos EX. Additionally, with Crispin, you're able to attack with Unified Beatdown, having a large bench to be able to pulverize your opponents. Additionally, we've got the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX in here once again as a way to handle opposing Cornerstone Ogerpon EXs, but additionally Terrapagos just walks right through it itself. Being able to use Monkey Dory effectively in this deck, being able to clear damage off of your Pokemon and placing it onto your opponents is another great way to handle smaller threats and take multiple prize turns into opposing things like Bidoof or other single prize Pokemon. I think this deck is a lot easier to play in comparison to a normal Terabox with the multiple energy types, as well as the energy switches and so on and so forth. This just contains one energy switch, but 3 copies of Crispin, so it's just more straightforward. I think this deck is very well poised to take a shot at the top tables at the Atlanta Pokemon TCG Regional Championships. If you found this video informative, helpful at all, let me know down below in the comments, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does mean a lot, and it really helps the channel grow. That's it for me, and I'll see you guys in the next video.